got caught in the middle of a jam fight. I'm covered in strawberry jam. Oh, don't taste it, okay? Felix will be fine.
Could this be the new king of romantic zombie comedy movies to take Shaun of the Dead off the throne? We are talking Little Monsters. This one is written and directed by Abe Forsyth and stars Lupita Nyong'o, Josh Gad and Alexander England. Now, the main kind of character here isn't actually Lupita Nyong'o's character, it's actually Alexander England's character Dave. He's our POV character. And essentially, he's a kind of a bit of a man-child. You know, he's never got married, he hasn't had kids, and he's pretty irresponsible, can't hold down a job, can't stay in a relationship, and he's kind of been kicked out by his most recent girlfriend, living with his sister, and has to kind of take some responsibility in looking after his young nephew, about this 5-year-old kid. But of course, he's teaching him bad habits, swearing, playing violent video games, etc. And he's tasked one day to take him into school, and so he does, and kind of falls head over heels in love with his teacher, played by Lupita Nyong'o, and volunteers immediately to go and help in this school trip where they are going to a local petting zoo. So they do that, they're off they go, and however, this happens to be at the same time where a nearby military facility has been doing experiments on the undead, and they've had a breakout, and all these zombies have escaped and are heading towards this kind of this petting zoo full of kids. And obviously we have Dave along with Lupita Nyong'o's teacher character. You've also got Josh Gad there, who plays like a kind of kids TV show host, and along with a few other kind of like cannon fodder along the way. So let's talk about what worked. Man, this movie had me in stitches. Now, comedy is subjective, let's just say that. So what I find funny might not necessarily be what everyone finds funny, but I've got to say, the first act of this movie, and this is really before we even see a zombie, but just seeing Dave's kind of shenanigans with his young nephew, I thought was hilarious. I mean, there's an opening scene where him and his kind of girlfriend at the time are arguing. To me, that was a bit of an error in judgment, because it doesn't start off great, but that's only like a 2-3 minute scene. But once we're going to get past that scene, there are some really, really funny moments, some really kind of like good gags in regards to, I don't want to spoil them for you, but in regards to some really funny stuff that he does with his nephew. I thought he was absolutely hilarious. I'll be looking out for more stuff. I'm not familiar with the actor here, to be honest, but I'll certainly be looking out for some more stuff. So there was some great comedy. Now, the comedy really is primarily focused on the first act. There are some jokes in the kind of the latter two acts. Once the zombies come into the picture, the humour is a little bit more sparsely dispersed. I've got to say, this movie I found quite touching. There are some genuinely quite emotional scenes here. The relationship between Alexander England's Dave's character and his sister, I thought was really well handled, and I really felt a genuine connection there. I genuinely felt the kind of the bond kind of between Lupita Nyong'o's character and Dave, and also the kids as well. His nephew, this kind of little 5-year-old lad, absolutely adorable. And again, I thought was a great actor. The acting here is all fantastic, and I thought that was really strong. And obviously the other kids as well. I mean, there's kind of like, it reminds you of, it's like a zombie kindergarten cop in a way, mixed with Return of the Living Dead. So yeah, I thought all the acting was good. I was really impressed with the production value here. This isn't your kind of like your straight to DVD Asylum level, zombie flick. They've got a couple of very well, recognisable actors in Lupita Nyong'o and Josh Gad. There's some really kind of decent zombie makeup effects, and there's some reasonable amount of gore here, although it's not excessive. But there's also some like good like outside of that, you have like military planes, lots of extras, nice kind of like wide angle shots and things like that to kind of show the scope and the devastation of these zombies. So it's got a decent production value in there, and the story as well is kind of quite fun. It has the conceit here is that the we have the teacher, this kind of slacker Dave, and this kind of like this kids TV host played by Josh Gad. The three adults essentially are having to look after this kind of like class full of kids, from both physically getting attacked from the actual zombies themselves, but also stopping the kids from panicking too much by pretending it's like a game and really just kind of shielding them. There's some quite funny scenes, for example, when Lupita Nyong'o's character is covered in blood. You know, she quickly says, "I've been in a jam fight," things like this. A jelly fight if you're in America. But, you know, it was there was some good comedy because they're interspersed, and the kind of the running theme of these kind of keeping the kids safe was good. The zombies themselves and the kind of the military side of it are for the most part treated pretty seriously. I was really reminded of Return of the Living Dead in this kind of movie, because obviously that's kind of a military-based zombie origin, and it's very similar to this one. And the zombies themselves are treated dangerously, and the military is obviously pretty much, you know, treated again fairly seriously. There's a couple of like small gags right at the end of the movie in regards to zombies maybe singing. You know, you make sense when you see it. But yeah, for the most part, there's actual kind of that is all sort of treated relatively kind of seriously. I think the movie is quite well paced, so you know, this is an enjoyable movie. Is there anything that I can say is maybe not so good? I feel the character that Josh Gad plays has been expanded upon because they've got a named actor. Because to be honest with you, what he brings to the table is just filler, to be honest. And I think he's wanted a specific amount of screen time, and you know they've kind of let him improvise a certain amount. But I didn't really feel his character added a whole lot to the kind of the story, to be honest with you. I found it, to be honest with you, it actually took away from Lupita Nyong'o's character, who had a little less to do than I was expecting. If you look at the trailer and the poster right here, she's clearly kind of like the central character. But in actual fact, that's not the case. It's Dave is really the central character here, and I feel that maybe she gets a little bit shortchanged in favour of maybe Josh Gad's character, who I can only assume wanted a specific amount of screen time, really. But I didn't think his character really warranted that, to be honest. So, like I said, as the movie goes on, the humour is a little bit more kind of like sparse, but maybe it kind of suits the kind of the tone, so I can't really complain too much about that. But you know, the story kind of goes at a relatively kind of predictable kind of turn from that point on. But certainly no major complaints for me in this one. I actually really enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot. It's a definite kind of like rewatchable film for the kind of the funny stuff. I was genuinely kind of touched. I thought the relationships here between all kind of the characters, the nephew and his uncle, him and his Lupita Nyong'o, Dave and his sister, who only has a small amount of screen time, was all fantastic. I genuinely think this is a pretty decent zombie movie, and I don't have any major complaints about this one at all. I want to give this one an 8 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyable zombie comedy, and I'll be controversial. I think I prefer this than Shaun of the Dead. Have you seen it? 8 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.